I've never really made a video like this before. I usually stick to video essays where I do a deep dive into a topic and talk about it in detail. In the past few months, my Instagram page has doubled in followers and I've started getting way more views, likes, comments. That means more positive comments and also more hate comments. People say a lot of things about me, and there's also a lot of assumptions as well. So, today I'm going to expose all of these men who have made hate videos on me. Haha, just kidding. I'm not going to do that. I don't personally think that I need to give an explanation or justification for my content because people who understand will understand. And I can't really explain myself to everyone. But I'm in a chatpata mood today. So I thought it would be a great way to get to know me through misconceptions about me. Who I am, what I do, everything. She's making rage bait content. She's had a bad life. She's unhappy. That's why she's making such videos. Her content is not psychology, it's not mental health. She is brainwashing girls. She hates men. She's a misandrist. She's a fake feminist. She's a toxic feminist. She's a pseudo feminist. A lot of people say these things about me. They make comments like that, they DM me, and they also make videos on me. So hi, I'm Divija Bhasin. I started making content in 2020 during the lockdown. I was doing my second masters at that time. Why did I do a second masters? I'll explain that in the video. Anyway, so I started making videos for fun. Actually, no. I think I was doing that to get to know a side of me. A side of me that I didn't really know I had. You see, I was in a convent school and it was extremely strict and it had a lot of slut shaming. The teachers used to tell us that we're wearing black clips to attract boys. Our skirts had to be 2 inches below the knee so that boys wouldn't think that we're asking for it. We also had to braid our hair and wear long socks instead of ankle length socks because what if boys think we're bad girls? It was an all girls school. There were no boys over there. So we were being slut shamed for hypothetical boys. I hated it. Not just the slut shaming, everything about that school. Because it didn't really go with my upbringing. My parents are really nice. I have been given freedom and gentle parenting. I love my parents. They were not toxic. They've never tried to cage me. They've seen me as a person instead of an object. I was extremely quiet in school. I felt awkward, like I didn't belong there. I didn't really know that it was because the school was like that. I thought I was just like that as a person. By the way, that's why my username is Awkward Goat, because I'm awkward. The goat is there because I used to have a dog when I made that username and he had long ears and he looked like a goat. He passed away a few years after I made the page, but he still lives with me through me on that page. And he will always be a part of my username. That's also why I love goats. Anyway, I didn't really like my school. I didn't feel like I could express myself freely over there. My parents knew this, I made it very clear to them. So they tried to help me change my school, but all the good schools were asking for bribes, like they wanted my parents to buy them ACs and buses and things like that, and we couldn't really afford that, so I was stuck in my school. So, no, my videos are not inspired by my life or my parents or my childhood. If we ignore the school part, I had a pretty healthy and happy childhood. I am who I am because of my parents. I am outspoken and I don't shy away from speaking my mind because my parents allowed me to do that. They supported me to do that. Now you must be wondering, how did I go from a shy, awkward kid in school to this, sitting in front of a camera talking to lots of people with a mic? I wasn't confident at all, but I had a lot of opinions. It was incredibly difficult for me to learn how to speak on camera. I literally used to shiver and tremble in front of the camera when I would start speaking the first few times. It must have taken months for me to be able to speak without dying. But my desire to speak my mind was far greater than my public speaking anxiety. Look, I love psychology, it's my passion, and I also love talking about women's issues. My psychology class in school was probably the only class where I would literally put my hand up and ask questions. I would be trembling inside like this, but I would still ask the questions that I had and also give my opinions in front of the whole class. I would be sweating, my heart would be beating really fast, but that didn't stop me. And I think that's when that fire inside me started, the fire to speak. I think I noticed that fire when I made the first video that I ever made on TikTok. I used to make those acting videos with music in the background. I would portray social issues, stereotypes, but I wouldn't speak. It would just be me pretending to act because I didn't really know how to act with text on the screen.
No, like I've never heard of that. Like I've never heard of it. Guys.
I think I made videos for a few months on TikTok before it got banned, but not one of those videos was one where I was talking to the camera. Then TikTok got banned and I felt this sort of heartbreak. And I was shocked because why am I feeling bad that I can't make silly little videos, right? And then Reels was introduced on Instagram and I was so happy. Which is weird because I have never dreamt of being a creator, public speaker, influencer, whatever you want to call it. My dream has always been to be a therapist. Now, this section of the video might be a little boring, but I think everybody needs to watch it so they know the qualifications you need to be a therapist in India. The qualifications are different for different types of therapists all over the world. So, the qualifications in India are not the same as the qualifications abroad. There are two major types of therapists in India. One is a counseling psychologist and a clinical psychologist. By doing bachelor's and master's in psychology, you become a counseling psychologist. And if you do both of these degrees and do an MPhil in clinical psychology, then you become a clinical psychologist. I dreamt of being a clinical psychologist. So I did my bachelor's of psychology in India and then I did a master's outside India in University of Bath. And then I came back and did another master's so I could be eligible to do that MPhil and become a clinical psychologist. So yes, I did 2 masters in psychology. I really wanted to study abroad because the psychology that is taught in India is honestly not that amazing. And I wanted to stand out. I wanted to learn things that other psychologists in India might not get to learn. And I did get a scholarship to study abroad. I also worked as a waitress over there so that I could pay for my own expenses. One day, I really hope that I can do a PhD in psychology as well. Anyway, so during my second master's in India, that's when the lockdown had happened. At that time, my plan was to finish my master's and go straight into doing MPhil. But then I decided, let me try to work as a counseling psychologist first because I've already completed my master's and I should know what it's like to work as a psychologist. So I started training under a clinical psychologist and also started making content on the site. As I started taking therapy sessions, I realized the kind of problems people go through. Things that no one seems to talk about. I think that changed something inside me. At that time, I also started getting a lot of appreciation for my content because nobody else was making psychology related content on Instagram at that time, at least in India. So I started getting a lot of clients because of my page because it was growing. And at one point, it became so much that I had way too many clients. I got so burnt out and I felt like I can't do this anymore. I can't take on all the clients that I get. It's not fair for them or for me because I want to give it my best. So I hired a therapist and I started giving her some of the clients that I was getting. Then after a few months, even her client load increased so much because of me that she was not able to handle it either. So then I had to hire another therapist. And then this kept happening, and that's how the Friendly Couch was formed, which is my mental health organization. And now I have a whole team of therapists who provide sessions to clients. I've also decided to not do MPhil because I'm already doing what I wanted to do, which is helping a lot of people. And I'm able to do that because of my content and also because I have so many therapists now. So the clients that come, they don't have to wait for me. They can take sessions with therapists who I have interviewed and chosen. I also get a lot of criticism for this, by the way. People say that I am not taking all the clients that I get and they question why I'm not taking that many sessions. But I would rather do justice to the clients that I currently have rather than just keep taking lots of clients and not be able to provide them with the best quality of therapy, if you get what I mean. I'm not doing this to just increase the list of my clients. So the therapy sessions that I take show me the reality of mental health in India. A lot of people take therapy, by the way, and a lot of people are unhappy. People believe that therapists don't get work, they don't get clients, but that's really not true. It's just that the clients don't tell other people they're going for therapy because there's so much stigma. Because of the therapy sessions I take, I've realized how much abuse is normalized in India. Sexual abuse in childhood is extremely common. And it's not just girls getting abused, boys also get abused. Every other person who comes to therapy has had some kind of sexual abuse in their childhood. And unfortunately, almost all the abusers are male. There is so much gender bias in our country, and women are really subjugated. And it's like a cycle. Nobody talks about these things, so it just keeps happening. Nobody puts an end to it. Apart from this, children are also abused. They're hit.
गाइस देखो खाना खा लो, आलू की सब्जी है और पूरी है।
खा लिया? तने खा लिया खाना? तने खा लिया? हेलो गाइस, खाना खा लो, चुपचाप से खा ले। 4 घंटे हो गए क्या बोलते बोलते।
Hitting children is seen as a way to discipline them. So I make content on how we should respect children as well. And then I get this criticism that I'm not a parent, I don't have children, so how can I talk about these things? My answer is that I get to see the consequences of your bad parenting in therapy sessions. And that is why I have a right to talk about it. Now, a lot of my content is also feminism through a psychological lens. I usually don't make videos directly talking about depression, anxiety, symptoms of disorders, and just mental health terms that we throw around. I don't do that because I find that really superficial. How can we talk about depression and its symptoms if we don't talk about why it's happening in the first place? Without talking about the type of parenting that is leading to that, without talking about the society that is leading to that. Society, conditioning, parenting, all of these things are ingrained in us since we are born. If so many people in India have unhealthy eating patterns, unhealthy relationships, alcohol problems, drug problems, abuse problems, it's because the society around us conditions us to be this way. How is this not psychology? How is this not mental health? To talk about the problems that result in mental health problems. Mental illness doesn't just come out of thin air. It is built generation by generation following unhealthy patterns and not breaking them. And truthfully, a lot of things that we see as tradition in our culture are just unhealthy patterns. They're unhealthy because they cause a lot of harm and pain to the people who follow them. Now, we can't just blindly follow that whole Western narrative of therapy where it's like, oh, just make boundaries with your family. It's literally impossible in our culture to just cut off from your parents. Our society, our family, it's a huge part of our life. We cannot escape it, which is why I talk about it. Now, a lot of my clients are women, especially women who've suffered because of patriarchy. Patriarchal systems make women depressed. It makes them lose their voice. The fact that more women take therapy compared to men is proof that patriarchy is a huge problem in our country. Because patriarchy makes men believe that they're not supposed to cry, they're not supposed to express what they feel, they're supposed to be all strong and hard, like a statue. Now, if they don't express themselves and they suppress their real emotions, of course they're going to come out in violent ways. Because it's unnatural to not cry, to not acknowledge what you're going through. So, do I hate men? No, I don't. I hate patriarchy and the men who profit off of it. Men who suppress women and make them not have a voice. It infuriates me. It reminds me of all the traumatic stories of people who come to therapy. All the people who are my clients. And therapy cannot just work by talking about individual problems. We also need to address the society. What is the point of a woman taking therapy and me not acknowledging that the society is one of the factors that led her to her suffering? I can't just blame it on her and be like, you should have been stronger. That's not how it works. Now, the people, especially men, who question if I'm a feminist or not, are doing this because they're misogynists. Men call me pseudo-feminist, they call me misandrist, they call me toxic feminist. They say I'm not a real feminist. And I'm like, who are you to question my level of feminism? Especially if you're a man. Whenever I make any feminist content, they try to steer the conversation away from the topic by calling me these things. They try to manipulate the conversation away from my content. Because they know if they start calling me a pseudo-feminist or a misandrist, I will feel the urge to be like, no, I'm not. Or like even my followers, they will feel the urge to defend me. And that literally shuts down the whole conversation of the topic of my video. For instance, if I'm talking about something like dowry or women getting abused by their husbands, these men will start commenting or making videos on me, calling me a fake feminist. So now the conversation is about whether I am a fake feminist or a real feminist instead of actually sticking to the topic, which was dowry and abuse. Somehow men will always question how feminist a woman is, but they'll never question the misogynistic men in their life. And they'll never, ever, ever question how feminist a man is. Have you ever seen a person calling a man a pseudo-feminist? No. Sometimes women do this too because they have internalized misogyny. But they are victims of the misogyny. Men are the oppressors. And that's why I don't hate pick-me women and I hate misogynistic men. Misogyny and patriarchy make it very easy to hate on women instead of hating on the oppressors, which are men. Before I started making videos, I didn't even know how much stigma there was in the society. So much mistreatment and discrimination against women. I've grown up in such a privileged place that I didn't even know that women are still forced to sleep on the floor when they're on their periods, that they're not allowed to go into temples or go into the kitchen when they're bleeding. They're also not allowed to eat from the same plates as other family members when they're on their period. I thought this was rare, a thing of the past, but it's not. It actually happens amongst the upper class, rich, upper caste places as well. Even rich women are not as privileged as rich men. I didn't even know that women are forced to wear Mangal Sutra and Sindoor after they get married because women around me don't wear that. But when I got married, I posted a video that I'm married now, and people started commenting, why aren't you wearing Sindoor and Mangal Sutra? As if I don't have an option and I have to wear it. That's why I made that viral video which got me in the news, where I talked about how I don't wear any of these things and I find them oppressive for myself. I also didn't know how badly people mistreat women if they get divorced. I got to hear about it because women who were divorced would message me and tell me their stories. All of the topics that I make content on, my followers have told me about it. I didn't know how common all of these things were. They're common in every level of the society. There's like a very small percentage of women who are not oppressed in some way or the other. Actually, I don't really know any woman who is not oppressed. Even the most privileged women are oppressed. For example, the burden of parenting is always on the woman. And if she doesn't do that, even if she's like the richest woman in the world and she gets help for managing the household, for taking care of her kids, she'll be blamed and questioned for being a bad mother. But that won't happen to the guy. The father can just go away, go on business trips, and nobody cares about whether or not he's there for his children. All the things that I make content on, those things are very common in the society. It is normal to go through it. In fact, it is rare to not go through these things. And that makes me angry. The fact that I didn't know how common it was. Because nobody talks about it. It is so normalized that it's not seen as a problem. How does that not make everyone else angry? How is it so uncomfortable to watch my content calling these things out? How is it not uncomfortable to witness these things in the society for the people who hate on me? Why are they not angered by all of these problems that exist in our society? I'll give you another example. We all know about Kanyadan, right? It happens during a wedding where a daughter is given away by the father to the husband and his family. Now, this is a huge problematic thing, and I didn't do this as part of my wedding, and that's not the point. I got to know that during Kanyadan, the daughter and the parents are supposed to not eat or drink any water the whole day till the Saat Fere happen, which is at the end of the day. And there's nothing like that happening in the boys' side of the family. They can just eat and drink whatever they want. I have spent 28 years on this planet and I didn't know this was a thing. I got to know last week. And this is common, but nobody talks about it. But I can bet you that if I make a video about this, people are going to hate on me instead of hating on this. Now, there's a misconception that therapists need to have empathy for everyone. That's physically impossible. Therapists have empathy for their clients because they know their history, their background. It's a professional relationship. Therapists outside of those therapy sessions in the world in normal life can have their own opinions. They do not exist to provide empathy to everyone and to keep everyone happy. Now, even if we assume that therapists exist to make everyone happy, happiness doesn't come from talking about happy, positive, great, beautiful things. Happiness will come from breaking patterns. And that might be uncomfortable at first, but breaking that pattern is what eventually will lead to happiness. That's what I'm trying to do with my content as a therapist. So no, I do not have empathy for oppressors. They're not my clients. Every single person who watches my content is not my client. I do not make rage bait content. I have never made a video in my life with the sole purpose to anger people. My aim is to help people who don't have a voice. If they can't access therapy, at least they'll feel validated by my videos. It's strange that people watch my content and they get angry. They're angry that I'm openly talking about the problems in our society, problems that harm us. They should be angry that such problems exist in the first place. I do not make rage bait content. People have made a rage bait culture, and I'm just calling it out. People who think my content is rage bait find patriarchy peaceful. And I get it. If you have never seen such problems around you, you'll think I'm making it up and I'm exaggerating and I'm overthinking. But just because you haven't seen problems doesn't mean those problems don't exist. When I started making content, very few women in India were talking about feminism on Instagram. So it took me a few years to build my following. It was a slow process. I did not blow up overnight. If I wanted to make content just for views, I would literally make content which was homophobic, sexist, racist, supporting abuse, supporting slut shaming, because these ideas are already popular in the society. It's very easy to get views and followers if you talk about these things. But I don't support these things, so why will I make videos that support these ideas? I make content that is close to my heart even if it gets less views. It used to get less views. Now people are interested in these conversations. I've noticed this change on the internet. I see more creators talking about these topics. It makes me really happy to see people of privilege using their voice. It's not like progressive feminist ideas didn't exist before. The problem was that the voices of tradition and regressive ideas were very loud. And the progressive people who are privileged, they're just living their life. Why talk about problems that don't happen to them, right? And even if they did care about these problems, how do you talk about them? Not many people were talking about them, so you wouldn't know how to talk about them either. It's hard to do something if you don't see other people doing it. It wasn't that hard for me because I come from a background in psychology and therapy, and these conversations are already normalized in that space. So it was normal for me to talk about it even though I didn't really see other people talking about it. But now more people are having these conversations. I just want people to feel validated by my content, and they do. I continue to make such videos because people tell me they want me to talk about the problems that they go through. I get hundreds of messages every single day from people of all socioeconomic backgrounds, of all genders. They give me ideas on what to talk about, and that's how I know what topics to pick up. I look at my comments and my DMs because I can only know so much as a person who comes from a loving and privileged background. Now, if multiple people message me or comment with the same topic, for every 20 people who tell me to make a video on a certain topic, there must be 100,000 people who couldn't get themselves to message me and tell me but want me to talk about it. My videos anger people because they're calling out the people who are mistreating others. These people have always lived a life of privilege. Upper class, upper caste, privileged people. Mostly men because men get the most amount of privilege in our society. Of course, it will anger them because when you're privileged, equality can feel like oppression. If your power comes from subjugating others, of course, you're going to not like equality. You're going to feel angry because something that you've had all your life is now being given to other people as well. You're no longer special. Everyone deserves privilege. The privilege to have an opinion, to express that opinion, the privilege to not suffer and lead an easy, happy life. Hate comments don't really bother me anymore. They used to, but then I noticed something. The negative comments are like 10% of all the comments that I get. The rest 90% are comments of people telling me that they felt heard and validated. For every 100 negative comments, there are like 50,000 likes. That means for every 100 people who don't like what I'm saying, there are 50,000 people who like it. That ratio tells you everything. A lot of my audience also gets affected by the hate that I get. I get a lot of messages of people asking me out of concern if I'm okay, how I'm managing. I'm more than okay. Because if people are hating on me, it's because I'm making them uncomfortable. I want to make privileged people uncomfortable. I want to make them uncomfortable with their privilege. I want to make them aware of how their privilege is affecting others. I want to help them break their unhealthy patterns. And I'll keep doing that regardless of what other people say. So please, continue making hate videos on me. Because that actually helps me to start a conversation. It may be a conversation full of controversy, but at least people are talking about those things now. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.